Tonight on Steelers Talk, we have the latest Steelers wide receiver trade rumors as the Pittsburgh Steelers have been linked to two big-name wide receivers in potential trade talks this offseason. Then we get to Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who has linked two wide receiver draft prospects to the Pittsburgh Steelers that he claims that the team really likes. Then we'll get into our first batch of first formal combine meetings here for the Pittsburgh Steelers here as linebackers and defensive linemen and even some defensive backs. We got word today that the Steelers are meeting with in a formal capacity in Indianapolis. So make sure you guys stick around to see every single player that the Steelers are meeting with, at least that we know of so far. But guys, this is actually our third video that we are making for Steelers Talk today. Ponzi and I got into the office super early today to get a first video out. Then we put out a second video out, and now we're here nearly at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, still cranking out content for you guys. So if you appreciate the content that we're providing for you guys here during Combine Week. This is always a crazy week with rumors and news, and we wanted to make sure we're getting you guys the very latest here on Steelers Talks. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button for the most dedicated Steelers coverage you're going to find here on YouTube. That's why we're the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere here on YouTube. So if you guys want daily updates on the black and gold every single day throughout the calendar year, make sure you guys click that subscribe button and join the Steelers Talk family. So we'll start here with some of the latest wide receiver trade rumors for the Pittsburgh Steelers, starting with Jaylen Waddle, who is certainly becoming a popular wide receiver trade target among Steelers fans. But new Dolphins GM John Eric Sullivan spoke to the media yesterday at the NFL Combine and says that they are not looking to move Jaylen Waddle, or at least not unless they get a price that they just can't refuse here. This is David Ferrones, who covers the Miami Dolphins on X here, says on wide receiver Jaylen Waddle, Dolphins GM John Eric Sullivan said, quote, Jaylen is a very good football player. My vision is for Jaylen to be part of this. We are not actively trying to move Jaylen Waddle. So of course he leaves the door open there for a package, a trade package that could knock his socks off, and they would be open to potentially trading Jaylen Waddle. And keep in mind that Sullivan might be trying to play the game here a little bit as a first-year GM. He might be trying to make it seem like, oh, we don't want to get rid of Jaylen Waddle, so give us a better trade offer so that we can ship him off and we can get a first-round pick or something like that. But something that we do know is that Miami was listening to trade offers for Jaylen Waddle last year at the NFL trade deadline, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were one of the teams that were negotiating with them. Obviously, no deal came to fruition, so obviously Miami had a certain price tag that they felt like needed to be met, and the Steelers were not willing to meet that price tag before the deadline hit last year, unfortunately. But guys, I will say it wouldn't shock me if Miami feels like Waddle is a key piece to their offense. He is 27 years old, which isn't necessarily the youngest ever wide receiver, but he's certainly not old, at least not yet. Now, you could certainly argue that by the time this rebuild in Miami is over, he's going to be 29, 30 years old at the very youngest, and he's going to be starting to get to that twilight of his athletic prime, and they can get something like a first-round pick for him right now. So, I could see it going either way. I could see Miami dealing Jaylen Waddle this offseason. I could see them potentially seeing him as like a key piece of their offense. But my guess is that it's going to take a pretty decent haul to pry Jaylen Waddle away from Miami, okay? Because they just don't have a lot of talent on that wide receiver outside of Waddle and Devon Achane right now. So it's going to have to be a pretty decent pick, and I think it's going to have to be at least a first-round pick to get Jaylen Waddle in a trade. And, I was talking with our Miami Dolphins host, Nick Roloff, here at Chat Sports today, and apparently, according to him, he heard that the Miami Dolphins turned down an offer from the Buffalo Bills at the trade deadline last year for a first and third round pick for Jaylen Waddle, and he says that he'd be kind of shocked if they accept anything less than that in a trade for Waddle. Now, I think that if they get offered a first round pick, Miami will probably take that deal for Waddle. But I think the big question is Waddle worth that price tag for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So let's talk about that here. Waddle is 27 years old, so that's like a perfect prime wide receiver age range there. He's under contract for 3 more years, and he is known as one of the most dynamic speed threat wide receivers in the National Football League, a good route runner, fantastic after the catch. And if you acquire him via trade this year, his cap hit is less than $8 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. Just a $7.8 million cap hit next year for Pittsburgh if they have Waddle on the roster. But then that does go up to $30+ million over the next 2 years, the final 2 years of his active contract, and then the Steelers would be on the hook for $6 and $3 million respectively in the 2 void years that he currently has on his deal. But this is a wide receiver, guys, that has been super productive throughout the years. He's most productive coming in 2022, where he had over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. But, he's remained a very good receiver over the last several years. Now, obviously, he's dealt with some injuries, and Tua Tagovailoa has not been a great quarterback for Miami. But Waddle has been, a really good player for the Miami Dolphins throughout his career and would be one of the more premier wide receiver 2s if the Steelers can find a way to get him on their roster. But I do think that it's probably going to have to take at least a first-round pick in a trade value proposition here to get Waddle on your team. I just think that, anything less than a first, it's just not worth it for the Miami Dolphins. But if you don't want to give up your first-round pick, something else that you could think about is you could package Nick Herbig, who the team might trade anyway this offseason. And Herbig, it's well known, he wants a contract extension. He wants a full-time starting role that the Steelers may not be willing to give him. You can package Nick Herbig and then a pair of draft picks this year, a second and a fourth-round pick, to get Jaylen Waddle on your roster. This is something that our Dolphins host, Nick Roloff, said that he would be willing to do if the Steelers brought it to the table here. So which trade are you taking? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Are you taking trade number 1, where you're trading a first-round pick for Jaylen Waddle? Are you doing trade number 2, where you're trading Herbig, a second and a fourth? Or are you taking neither deal? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our brand new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, Rag & Bone. Well, I tell you about our new sponsor. Give me a 1, 2, or neither. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's pretty cold here in our studio here at Chat Sports, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this brand new denim shirt that I got from our brand new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, which is Rag & Bone. Rag & Bone Infuse offers a range of fits tailored for any style and occasion, from slim and straight to athletic and relaxed. Infused denim is a wardrobe staple that pairs perfectly with any outfit in whatever fit you prefer. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. I was completely blown away the first time I tried on my Rag & Bone shirt and jeans because of how broken in they felt right away and how high quality the materials were. I used to have to choose between jeans that looked great and ones that actually lasted, but with Rag & Bone, I finally get the best of both worlds. Rag & Bone Infused Denim is crafted with a proprietary 8-step over-dye process, and it gives each piece a rich, dimensional color that gets better with every wash. And not only do they look great, guys, but Rag & Bone makes jeans that are built to last, that actually get more comfortable the more that you wear them. It's time to upgrade your denim with Rag & Bone today. For a limited time only, our listeners can get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. That's 20% off at rag-bone.com with promo code CHAT. When they ask where you heard about them, please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to Rag & Bone for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now, another option on the trade market that could be available that the Steelers could think about is Brian Thomas Jr., who was a first-round pick out of LSU a couple of years ago to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And ESPN's Dan Graziano has listed Pittsburgh as a potential trade destination for BTJ this offseason if the Jags decide to let him go and send him elsewhere. This is a tweet from Carlos A. Lopez here, kind of broke it all down for us here. It says, Dan Graziano says there are teams monitoring the availability of Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. The Patriots, Bills, Steelers, and Raiders are listed as potential fits. Graziano notes that there has been no indication Thomas is available, but he's worth keeping an eye on. So we can take a look here at Brian Thomas Jr., somebody that was a first-round pick just a couple years ago, still has 3 more years of cost-controlled rookie contract here for the Steelers to potentially take advantage of. 6'2", 209, blazing fast, is a great deep threat, had a fantastic rookie season back in 2024, and that was with like Mac Jones throwing him the football there in Duval. Now this past year for BTJ, it wasn't quite as good, didn't have quite as many targets. Now he did play in 3 less games, but his total catches went down from 87 to 48, nearly going in half. The yardage obviously getting split quite a bit there, and his touchdowns go from double digits in 2024 to just 2 last season. Jacoby Myers really came in midway through the year year and essentially became their number one receiver there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's some people that think that if Jacksonville gets a good enough offer for BTJ, they might think about letting him go. But personally, guys, I kind of doubt Jacksonville's going to do that, all right? I think that, this is a team that still has a high level of belief in somebody that is really, really talented. There's a reason why he was a first-round pick. He's got the size, the fluidity, the ball tracking ability to be potentially a top 10 receiver in this game one day. And, bringing in Jakobi Meyers as a different kind of skill set was important for them and all that different stuff. But, those two complement each other really well. Jakobi Meyers is that underneath and intermediate kind of route runner, really tough with really great hands. And then BTJ is that guy over the top there, deep threat. And I really think they're going to keep Brian Thomas Jr. because the Jacksonville Jaguars have already announced that they're officially moving Travis Hunter to cornerback pretty much full-time. Travis is still going to come onto the field in certain big situations to play wide receiver, but he's not going to be a full-time corner and full-time receiver like the plan originally was there in Jacksonville. And obviously that means that Brian Thomas Jr. might have more of a crucial role to play in this Jacksonville offense led by Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence next year. So I do think to get Brian Thomas Jr., kind of like to get Jaylen Waddle, you're going to have to pay a premium. I think it is going to cost probably at least a first-round pick. If you're willing to go out and get a guy, Brian Thomas Jr., that's already shown you that he's got some serious talent, and you don't want to take the risk of Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, or Mekhi Lemon falling to you at number 21, and you just want to use that first-round pick on a young receiver that's only 23 years old. You still get 3 more years of cost-controlled rookie contract on him. This is something that the Steelers could consider. So type A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this potential trade to land Brian Thomas Jr. here in the Steel City. Now, another trade rumor here surrounds DK Metcalf, and Dan Graziano, actually in that same exact article that he mentions the Steelers as a potential trade fit for Brian Thomas Jr., he also lists DK Metcalf as a top 10 trade candidate in the NFL this season. This was Graziano's reasoning. When he signed his deal last spring, talking about DK, Metcalf's $25 million in 2026 salary was fully guaranteed, but his 2-game suspension at the end of the season for an in-game altercation with a fan voided that guarantee and could in turn make Metcalf easier to trade if the Steelers are so inclined. They'll be installing a new offense under new head coach Mike McCarthy, and while dealing Metcalf would weaken them at a spot where they're already thin, the wideout could end up on the market if he's not a fit for the scheme. Well, here's the thing, Dan Graziano, somebody that works for ESPN. The Steelers reinstated Metcalf's guarantees last year after the altercation. So even though the Steelers had the choice to void those guarantees, it was widely reported the Steelers didn't do that. They're like, we believe in DK Metcalf. We want him here long term. We're not going to take away his guarantees. I'm surprised Dan Graziano doesn't know that. This was the report from Jay Glazer the week after it happened, the altercation that is. He said because DK got suspended, the Steelers could have taken back all of his guarantees. They, however, have decided not to do that. They're sticking with DK. They don't want to do something like that. They want to make a long-term commitment to DK Metcalf, even in situations like this. And guys, I would be absolutely shocked if DK Metcalf is dealt this offseason. I mean, this is a team that is in pretty much desperate need to add receivers around DK Metcalf. Metcalf was the only legitimate starting receiver on the entire roster last year. How does it make sense to trade him away and then completely rebuild this wide receiver room next year? Not to mention this would piss Aaron Rodgers off if you ended up doing it. That DK and Rodgers are very close. This is not a move that I foresee happening. Now, maybe if DK continues to underwhelm in terms of his statistics, maybe later on down the road of his contract, they think about trading him away. That's a possibility. But this offseason, I see absolutely no way that the Pittsburgh Steelers trade away DK Metcalf. They're going to build this wide receiver room around him. Now we stay at the wide receiver position here, but we shift our focus to the draft as the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac says that the Pittsburgh Steelers, quote-unquote, like 2 wide receiver draft prospects in particular, and the 2 guys that he called out in his weekly chat this week were Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, who is, by the way, very popular at the NFL Combine this week, and Malachi Fields, who was a star of the Senior Bowl coming out of Notre Dame. This is what what Dulac had to say about these two wide receivers. Quote, "My favorite wide receivers in the draft are Cooper and Fields, and the Steelers like them both." So for me, guys, what this kind of stinks of, and I think Jerry is guilty of this from time to time, is that he thinks something's going to happen, so now he's going to say, oh, the Steelers think the same way that I think. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case. Now, I'm sure Jerry has talked about these two receivers, in jest or whatever, outside of a professional capacity with somebody on the Steelers staff. And he's like, man, I really like these receivers. And they're like, yeah, they're really good. And he takes that to mean the Steelers are really keen on these guys and they're going to be locking in on these two dudes, when that might not necessarily be the case. Now, I will say I'm with Jerry on the fact that I absolutely love Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. I believe he's a tier 1 wide receiver right up there with Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, and Carnell Tate, as some of the best receivers in this class. And I think he will go in round 1. I mean, right now, just the teams that we know of right now, 17 teams have already requested a formal combine interview with Omar Cooper Jr. There's a lot of interest in this young man. He's very well-rounded, great hands, great after the catch. He's tough as nails as a run blocker. He runs good routes to all 3 levels of the field. He's got good ball tracking ability. This guy might be the most complete wide receiver in the draft. I'm not even joking when I say that. And it seems like a lot of teams, a lot of draft analysts are starting to come around to that opinion. And, if Tyson, Tate, and Lemon are all off the board and the Steelers are there at number 21 and Omar Cooper Jr. is still available, watch out, because the Steelers might be taking this young man in the first round this year. He'd be a great complementary skill set next to DK Metcalf. And if you guys want to see my thoughts on all 4 of the top wide receivers, at least in my opinion, in this year's NFL draft, at least when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I talk about Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and then also Omar Cooper Jr. in our round 1 Steelers wide receiver draft targets video. If you want to check that out, I'll put the chip to that one in the top right if you want to check out my thoughts on those top receivers. But personally, I'll probably pass on drafting Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame. All right, now Malachi is somebody that is close to my heart because I'm a fan of the Golden Domers, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and Malachi was awesome for my Irish in his time there in South Bend, and he can make incredible catches, man. He showed that off at the Senior Bowl. Like there's a catch that he had against Pitt where he is like, here it is, he's just leaping through the air with one hand and he comes down with that football. It's absolutely unreal. But I will say the hype around Malachi Fields as a prospect is getting out of control. I feel like a lot of people's quote-unquote film study on prospects is they watch the highlights. And if you watch the highlights on Malachi Fields, you're going to see all these crazy one-handed catches, all these awesome contested catches down the sideline, and he can certainly do all that stuff. But in terms of what the Steelers need, I don't think they need a big body deep threat, right? And this is why, personally, I would not take Denzel Boston in round 1 if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, because you already have DK Metcalf, who's a big body that, just because of the way he's built, has a limited route tree. He runs slants and digs and posts and go balls and comebackers. And, you need somebody that can run the full route tree to complement DK Metcalf's skill set, in my opinion. Not to mention, I would like somebody that can run after the catch really well. Malachi Fields is not a separator. He is a downfield contested catch ball winner with a big body. And, that's not necessarily the skill set that I think that the Steelers need right now. I think they need somebody that can separate to all 3 levels of the field versus man coverage, somebody that can, run the full route tree, and somebody that can run after the catch as well, somebody that might be a little bit smaller. Now, if they can make catches down the sideline, if they can make catches in contested catch situations, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's something that I don't want in a wide receiver here in Pittsburgh, but like Malachi Fields, only does that. He doesn't really do anything else. He's not going to separate short and intermediate all that well. He's not really juiced up athletically in that way. So that's the type of receiver that I want here in Pittsburgh next to DK Metcalf for the next half decade. But who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who's your favorite Steelers wide receiver draft target this year, and who do you hope and pray ends up as a Pittsburgh Steeler by the end of this draft process? So now, before I go, I do want to get you guys today's confirmed list of combine formal interviews. And, this might be updated by the time this comes out. Maybe there's more names that get added to this list, but at the time of me recording this video, this list is accurate. And if you're wondering why combine formal meetings are important, why you should care about them, The Pittsburgh Steelers traditionally only draft players in round one that they meet with formally at the NFL Combine. Now, maybe things change with Mike McCarthy in that regard, but I would say keep an eye on these players, especially the guys that could go round one and what positions and all these different things, because it does matter in the grand scheme of things in terms of the players that the Steelers draft in round one, at least traditionally. So let's take a look at all of the names that we have confirmed as Combine formal interviews on Tuesday or Wednesday. And Caleb Downs was a big one today from Nick Farabaugh. I'll talk about him here in a second. Also, Farabaugh confirmed Colton Hood and Avian Terrell, the cornerbacks that could go round one here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, we got confirmation earlier today that C.J. Allen, Anthony Hill, and Jake Goldie were the linebackers that the Steelers formally interviewed. And then a trio of nose tackles here, Caden McDonald, Lee Hunter, and Darrell Jackson Jr., all of which I absolutely love getting interviews. Now, Lee Hunter, it's unclear if it was a formal or an informal, so I put him on this list just in case if it was a formal. And then Rayshon Benny, a defensive tackle from Michigan, also got a combine interview as well. Now, let's just talk about Caleb Downs here for a second, guys, because obviously Downs is expected to be a top 10 pick in this draft. Some people have him as the number one overall player in this draft. So instinctual, so good. He can play in the nickel, can play free safety, can play in the box, such a good tackler, great leader, all those different things. And, you know, I'm just getting giddy here, just thinking about Caleb Downs, Deshaun Elliott, and Jalen Ramsey all in the same defense here, man. That would be an absolute nightmare for opposing offenses to go up against, especially with our pass rush and how much talent we have up in the trenches. That would be an excellent, big nickel trio to have here in Pittsburgh, and it would be a lot of fun to have Caleb Downs here in Pittsburgh. But here's the problem with that scenario, is that the Steelers will likely have to trade up at least into the top 12 to make that happen, because I think if Downs gets the 12, the Cowboys probably take him. So you're going to have to trade inside the top 11 to be able to make this happen, and to go from 21 to 11 or even higher, you're going to have to make a significant investment in draft capital to trade up, and I just don't know if it's worth doing that for a safety. I think the Steelers can get a pretty decent safety in free agency this year, not to mention you've got multiple draft picks. It's a pretty decent safety class. You can get a good safety on day two. I absolutely love Downs as a player. I think he's a blue chip type of safety prospect, but I'm not sure I like him so much where I'm willing to trade my team's future in order to go get him in the top 10. Now, you guys can take a look here at something that, this could potentially look like here. If you want to trade up to number 11 and beat the Cowboys to the punch, if he falls a little bit, you could trade your first-round pick this year, your second-round pick this year, and then one of your third-round picks to maybe make this happen. I know the Dolphins could use some draft picks and as they start their rebuild. But let me know what you guys think. Would Caleb Downs be worth this trade? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to finish up today's show. And that'll be it for today's coverage from the NFL Combine here at Steelers Talk. We have been grinding all day long, guys, and we're going to be continuing to get you guys great coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers all throughout Combine week. So if you guys want more Steelers news and rumors coverage, whatever comes our way tomorrow, we're going to be covering it right here on Steelers Talk.